All right, welcome back. Great to hear from Nathan after his win against Austin Bursovic, but we are not done with round four yet. We have a backup feature to bring you. And Todd, I think as much as I enjoy watching Esper Legends get played, I do enjoy a bit of a change. So let's change things up a bit and let's bring some
Mm.
fresh decks to the feature match area. We're going to start with 5-color combo from Peter Golightly here, Todd. What have they brought to the table?
Okay, so this deck is extremely interesting. It's going to play out similarly in a lot of respects to the Esper Legends deck that we've been watching, but instead of winning in like this fair, clunky, mid-rangey way, we have a built-in infinite combo with Malira. Or sorry, excuse me, with Atsushi, Blazing Sky, Ratabrick of Urborg, and Blade of Shared Souls. There's also just like a ton of like these little value interactions that you can find as you play this deck. I absolutely adore Blade of Shared Souls. I thought it didn't get nearly enough respect during previous season, so I, for one, am infatuated with this deck, and I hope that they win.
Yeah, this build looks very cool. You do see Malara, as well as Tamiya's safekeeping in some ways of protecting your combo as well. So your early game, very similar to Esper Legends in some ways, Denick, Thalia, but you do also have Katilda to back it up, and then that infinite combo that hopefully we do get to see in action. Now, on the other side, Peter is going to be going up against Jordan Berkowitz, and Jordan has brought this domain control build that most recently and notably has won the South America Regional Championship, but we also did see this deck actually win the Southeast Asia Regional Championship as well, closer to the start of the season. So maybe a deck that has gone a little bit under the radar throughout a lot of this standard season so far.
So this deck, I honestly did not get to play against it very much in my testing, but I saw Ali Antrazi stream with it some. Like I saw a lot of people talking about it, and I played against it a couple times. So like I get the gist. You're just basically playing 5-color good stuff, and you have a lot of ways to enable all of those great cards. But the card that really hammers the deck home is going to be Herd Migration. For 7 mana, you get a 3/3 beast for each type of domain you have, but the money comes from being able to fix your mana easily and early with the channel effect. Green 1, discard it, search your library for a basic land, reveal it, put in your hand, and you gain 3 life. Herd Migration is not only an enabler, but it's a payoff. And whenever you have a card like that, in standard specifically too, it's just the best of both worlds. I really think this deck is cool. Contagious Vorak is one that when I saw it in preview season, I thought it like, oh man, this actually looks pretty good. I hope people are able to leverage it in a deck that not only is mid-rangey and wants to hit land drops, but it also in decks that want to proliferate. And it feels like, all of the Reckoner Bank Busters and Fable the Mirror Breakers running around could be the spot to do it. This isn't a Traxa deck, but it's not really trying to cheat into play too often. We do have a Singleton Cruelty of Gix, Fable the Mirror Breaker to just like round everything out. This is just a very classic, strong 5-color control shell.
Yeah, and I am very excited to see what some of these cards that we don't get to see too often, like Fable of the Mirror Breaker, I guess, are able to do here. But really, Leyline Binding, a card that I love and has seen a lot of success in other more older formats, getting some standard love here. And a card I'm really fond of, Courier's Briefcase. Todd.
Yeah, I love Courier's Briefcase. It's actually been popping up a lot in Bring to Light decks in Pioneer. Being essentially that Prosperous Innkeeper early, but then drawing a bunch of cards late game, it's awesome. But I think the biggest card for the domain deck is going to be Drag to the Bottom. 4 mana, essentially a sweeper for 4 mana. Outside of Depopulate, there's very few cards in the format that do something so efficiently, and this deck puts Drag to the Bottom at the forefront.
Yeah, and we are coming into game 2. So Jordan Berkowitz on the domain control deck did take down the first game. Peter Golightly here on the 5-color out combo deck. They've got a tougher road ahead of them, have to win 2 in a row. But starting things off with an on-the-play Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, a good start here in game 2.
All right, so you're going to see this 5 color combo deck just deploy the generic normal beatdown plan that is facilitated by the speed bump that is Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. It's excellent against matchups like this, essentially adding 1 mana to every single card they play is if they don't kill it. But there, go for targeting the arguably weaker Thalia, Guardian of Thraben because of how it affects every other spell that Berkowitz plays for the rest of the game.
Yeah, definitely love to see that as now an attack coming in from Peter and just paying to draw the card here thanks to Shanna.
I mean, this is a pretty big ability from Shano. If it ever attacks unfettered, you get to just draw cards equal to the life you gained. And so if your opponent's not doing anything and you just have a bunch of extra mana and you're able to freely connect with Ashana, I mean, it was a free draw 3. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that is one of the nice things about this card is the flexibility. You can pay up to the amount of life you gain that turn, but you don't have to pay the full amount of life you gain. So if Peter would have to discard, or if there's a card that they are looking to leave up and represent, they can choose to pay less and draw that many cards instead. So Shanna really providing some flexibility here. And a draw 3 is no joke, as Jordan Berkowitz is forced to fire off a board wipe for just one creature there in that drag to the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, it was a creature that already drew 3 cards, and you have to think maybe Jordan pulled the trigger a little too early on the go for the throat, targeting Thalia, but maybe the Thalia was just going to represent more than just 4 cards worth of advantage.
Plaza of Heroes coming down from Peter Golightly, but they do nothing but pass the turn back to Jordan. There is a copy of Negate in the hand from Peter, so does have that available, and I would not be surprised to see it fired off for this Fable of the Mirror Breaker that is coming down from Jordan. But it looks like Peter says it resolves, Todd.
Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly not sure. Peter's deck doesn't operate at instant speed very well. It has a couple copies of Urtai Resurrected, like you said, maybe a couple counter spells like Negate out of the sideboard. I have to imagine, that even though Peter is resource flush, I think that they're mostly bad.
Uh, yeah, I am almost certain there is a copy of Negate in the hand, so I think Peter may be very close to assembling their combo and is
Oh,
holding that Negate potentially as protection for resolving their combo rather than an answer to this Fable of the Mirrorbreaker, considering the choice not to fire it off there.
all right, great point on that. The Fable, it represents a lot of virtual card advantage and some actual card advantage, but Peter's already winning on that front, so perhaps ignoring it is best so that you can use the negate proactively, like you said, to protect your combo. I also don't mind just holding it for something a little more backbreaking. Fable is good, but there's just so many potential blowouts from this domain control deck. The late game herd migrations, farewell, drag to the bottom. Even Unleash the Inferno can potentially be a 2-for-1 if you have an artifact or enchantment play.
Look, it's not often we hear the words "fable is good," but I think it is very valid here. And Peter, on their turn, did resolve one of the combo pieces that this deck is trying to assemble in Atsushi, the Blazing Sky, hitting the board. Turn going back to Jordan Berkowitz, resolving the second chapter of Fable, the Mirror Breaker, following it up with a second Fable. And I think Peter being placed in the same position of, do you want to counter this one or just continue allowing Jordan to have it all and say that this negate is meant for other things?
All right. Well, it looks like it is going to resolve, so we're going to get another Gabo. The first Gabo can't quite attack into the Atsushi, but we'll see if Berkowitz has a removal spell. Instead, just passes the turn back.
All right. Part of this Atsushi and this combo being appealing here is the fact that at the moment, the Atsushi is just a 4/4 creature, so no free attack from Jordan to develop their mana without losing a Goblin Shaman. We do see a land coming down from Peter. That's 7 mana. So if Peter was unafraid, I believe they could just go for the combo here if they do have access to Radadrabek. I did see a copy of Blade of Shared Souls in their hand, so only missing the one combo piece now.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you told me Radadrabek of Urborg would be in a deck that is 4-0 at the regional championship, I would have not really believed you because I honestly did not know that much about this card during preview season. It was just another legend. But the fact that it works so well with Blade of Shared Souls with all the legendary copies is pretty incredible. I wouldn't be surprised if something like this picked up some steam after this event.
Yeah, and it's funny because this deck is very spicy, but there's also this alternate win condition that we're currently seeing, maybe not going to
Oh
fully
yeah,
play out, which is just beat down with some giant dragons.
yeah. You love to see Ao and Atsushi riding together in the skies. And right now, Jordan Berkowitz, he's already burned a drag to the bottom. We've already burned a go for a throat. And even if you kill these dragons with spot removal or with sweepers, they both leave behind significant value. So very scary stuff for Berkowitz. We'll see if maybe he's got a couple of cast down, or not cast, a couple of removal spells like Leyline Binding to take him down.
Yeah, there is a big cost to removing these dragons in traditional ways, as you mentioned. Out, particularly just having that ability to go through the top cards of your deck and try to replace itself with key cards that cost 4 or less total, where, well, that includes more Tsushis and Radadrobic. So this owl is really a key part of this combo, not only to find more pieces, but also, of course, in the end game, when you are actually comboing off, that counters ability is a big way to get infinite damage, essentially, assuming you have access to some attackers.
Yeah. It's funny. Bergwood's actually just discarded Disdainful Stroke. Had blue mana up last turn. Obviously, drew it for the turn. Very frustrating when you're facing down a giant dragon. Would have at least forced Peter to burn the negate to save it. But now getting to a spot where counterspells are no longer good enough. The threats are already deployed, and now it's up to you to find answers. And Peter has that counterspell backup, so it's going to be very difficult for Berkowitz to get out of this, I think.
One thing Berkowitz does have access to potentially is the double reflection of Kiki Jiki next turn. Of course, that is quote unquote pseudo infinite in terms of the number of goblins you are able to make on your opponent's end step, equal to the amount of mana you have. But that's feeling like a long time away right now if you're Jordan Berkowitz.
All right, but has a plan. Going to go for a drag to the bottom. This is going to be able to kill both of these creatures. We'll see if Peter wants to fight over it.
And Peter does have a choice of how to stack these triggers or just protect the creatures if they think that attacking in the air is going to be good enough. And notably, Jordan is at 11 life right now. Third drag to the bottom, pretty good. That's going to resolve for sure. So now for Peter, I'm certain that the owl is going to be looking. What mode do you think they're picking for its sushi? Cards or mana here?
I mean, it depends on hand. He did a pretty quick mana. I think both abilities are incredible, and make it so that Atsushi is a formidable 4-drop that absolutely needs a very specific type of answer. A reasonably sized whiff from Peter off of the AO only finds the one creature.
Yeah, but that creature is a Shauna, so that is going to draw 3 fresh cards here, if nothing else for Peter. We know they have access to a Blade of Shared Souls in their hand, so not missing much. And this Shauna drawing 3 fresh cards, being backed up once again by a Plaza of Heroes if Peter chooses to do nothing else. This is still looking pretty good for them.
Oh, for sure. The Plaza of Heroes acting not only as like perfect mana enablers, but also as protection for your legends is awesome. And here we have an absolute haymaker from Peter Golightly.
That is the Eternal Wanderer, I believe, coming down
as well.
Peter.
Yeah,
And
6 mana, has a million abilities. All of them are bad for Berkowitz.
yeah, you love seeing it on an empty board as well. That is going to be a pass back from Peter, and I think just choosing to draw 1 card here with that Plaza of Heroes, knowing that you have the 3 treasures with another Plaza to protect this Shauna or whatever you would like to do with your available mana. And for Jordan, down to 8 life, we're in sketchy territory now.
After 3 copies of Drag to the Bottom, most of the removal from Berkowitz side is going to be targeted. So I kind of like the play from Peter to hold up protection, but like drawing 2 cards might just be better. Like, I get it that it keeps your 3/3 alive on board, but there's not a ton of stuff to protect here from the Plaza. Just that 3-drop Shauna. I mean, obviously it's good, but it's only good because you draw cards. And if you don't draw cards, then What's the point?
We don't have a great look at what is in Peter's hand. We do know there is a Blade of Shared Souls, but 3 unknown cards at the moment, so not
Perhaps another
entirely clear
counterspell. Yeah.
what the rest of those cards are. There wasn't a counterspell last I looked last turn, but of course they did draw a card on their end step, so still possible that a fresh one was picked up.
Oh, this is the Kicker Angel, the Mardu one.
The Archangel,
Archangel
of
of
Wrath.
Wrath. Yeah, so this is getting full kickered, and we're gonna deal 2 to the double striking 2/2, and then 2 to the Wandering Emperor. Doesn't quite kill it, but now we can copy it with the Fable and then attack it down. So we'll see if this sequence from Jordan actually ends up getting him out of it. The Wandering, or sorry, the not the Wandering Emperor. That's the other one. But yeah, being able to take out this Planeswalker here, a pretty big deal.
Yeah,
The Eternal
there is
Wonder,
a
excuse me.
Faithful Absence available there for Peter. So they are able to just clear off the Archangel of Wrath and say, no, I don't think I want you to have that available this turn.
Yep. Nice removal spell from Peter. Going to save the day, keep the Planeswalker alive. Everything feels good. We're going to go back their way.
All right, and there's one clue and one treasure available for Jordan Berkowitz, but wasn't able to leave up 2, so that means this clue not able to be sacrificed this turn. And for Peter, they're able to attack back unimpeded, and that means up to 3 more cards if they choose to draw them, thanks to the Shauna on the end step.
Yeah, this Shauna is looking very strong. And you know, I'm very impressed by it. It's not even really a big part of the rest of the combo, but it's a legend. You know, it has a great ability if your opponent doesn't kill it. Very similar to like we were watching, you know, Gix earlier out of the Esper Legends decks playing a very similar role.
Yeah, and it is being pointed out that that Fable actually flipped that turn, so it shouldn't have been able to activate. I'm not sure if a judge caught it at the time. It unfortunately does not look like it did, but we will make sure to have somebody informed of that, just so it is noted for the future. I'm not sure if that is what this judge call is about right now, but it does look like the board state is being reverted actually to before this happened.
Okay.
Pretty
So
good news.
yeah, I mean, it's honestly better for Berkowitz, right? Like, Peter might not even have wanted to play the removal spell on it because the only reason he played it was because it was threatening his Planeswalker. So I'm very curious how far they're going to rewind here.
Uh, it does look like that is not the thing being caught here. We're not going to speculate. We're just going to allow the judge call to happen.
Sure.
And of course, unfortunately, as the matches are delayed and we are commentating over them later on, we don't have a great sense of what the judge call is about or how it got resolved, but we're just going to let it play out. And meanwhile, let's just talk about this matchup. Let's talk about should Peter win this game and push it to a game 3. How do you feel the matchup changes for Jordan on the play for that third game?
Well, unlike the Esper Legends deck, I don't think either player really has a lot of reason to be on the play versus draw. Like no one's going to choose to be on the draw, right? It's not going to be advantageous to do that. Peter's Thalia Guardian of Thrabins are going to be the biggest factor, I think, for being on the play. But you know, if Jordan being on the play is going to make them slightly worse, but they'll still be good. I feel like Peter just has to be the aggressor. You know, I want to bring in stuff like Meaglaws. I want to bring in Threadbreaker of Silence. I want to win the game in fair, normal ways with counterspell backup. I think that's a great way to attack these domain control decks.
All right. While we wait for this to get resolved and spoken about, I think this is a good time for a little moment of Tandy Explains. And in this moment, Todd, I would like you to break down exactly how this combo works between the Owl, the Dragons, and the Rata Drawback in this deck. For anyone who may not be familiar with what some of the cards do, what is the combo? How does it play out? Break it down for us.
All right, so here's the big thing. Rotabrick of Urborg says, whenever another legendary creature you control dies, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's not legendary and it's a 2/2 black zombie in addition to its other colors and types. The thing that this doesn't say, it does not say non-token legendary creatures. And so what ends up happening is with Blade of Shared Souls, you get a copy of the creature that's a token, and then when you sack that, you get another copy that allows you to just churn through your deck with things like Atsushi the Blazing Sky, as well as gain infinite mana with Atsushi. And then you just have all these other like kind of value slash protective creatures that surround it. You know, Malira Living Cure can protect your creatures from opposing removal that would break up the combo. AO Donsky, if they kill it, can actually find combo pieces, but it also works well with the Ratter Brick. You know, if you're just like doing that, that seems pretty good too, you know.
All right.
That's the best I got. You know, I haven't really gotten to play with it too much, so it's a very cool deck, and I'm honestly looking forward to seeing it more myself.
All right, that does sound like a pretty good explanation. Thank you, Tandy. It does look like we are nearing the resolution of this judge call as things continue getting sorted out. Again, I don't want to speculate too hard on what the result is going to be, but it does feel to me like we are too far past. So there may not be a rewind, but we'll continue hearing it, and it looks like we rewinded to a point where the Fable untapped, but the the removal spell could not be taken back, and now we are on Peter's turn again.
Hmm. That seems like you know, the ruling is the ruling. I'm not going to question it, but it is always a feel bad when something like that happens and you catch it a little too late. Just for chat at home, this is recorded. We are at least an hour past where we're at, so it's not like we can go back and fix it. But we just trust in the judges, trust in the fix. You know, it's standard across everything, and it is what it is.
Yeah. And the game is progressing now, so we are going to focus on the future, not linger on the past. So, Peter, looks like they attacked with the Shanna, made another token, deployed Athalia, and drew the full 3 from Shanna on the end step. Jordan, untapping, did choose to cast an Atraxa, but that was met with an Urtai from Peter to counter it without allowing Jordan to get the cards. And then that is going to be the end of the game. So Peter Golightly, they are going to take down that second game. Fortunately, no harm done from that slight misstep. And we are headed to a game 3, Todd.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Shauna Purifying Blade just draw tons of cards in that game. I think that, you know, it's going to be one of those creatures that if you're not playing good blockers, you have to kill it. We saw that early Go for the Throat take out Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, and Berkowitz let the 3-mana 3/3 Life Flicker rumble on through and was able to just draw 3 cards off of it and say go. That's a very powerful ability when your opponent has no blockers and no removal spell for your creature, and was able to ride that wave of card advantage to victory relatively easily, even in the face of like 3 drag downs or drag to the bottom, excuse me.
Yeah, and as we go into the third game very shortly, I think it is worth mentioning that this is a scary sign from the Al combo deck if they're able to essentially be a deck that is pure value and attrition without using their actual combo. That was Peter Golightly just out card advantaging the domain control deck that is supposed to be the greedy king of card advantage in the standard metagame.
All right. Well, it looks like we're here for game number 3. Peter going to be on the draw. Berkowitz comes out swanging with an earlier Courier's Briefcase. How does this change the dynamic of the next few turns?
It is Berkowitz definitely getting off to the mana advantage now. We did see Peter the previous game when they were on the play. They were able to deploy the Thalia and slow things down from Jordan. That forced a Go for the Throat that then made things awkward for Jordan when dealing with the Shanna that followed afterwards. This game, no such issue. Jordan is onto the board quickly, has access to more mana, so feeling less pressured if Peter was to deploy something like this Thalia, and that means that Jordan can be more selective with his removal spells, leading to better situations for him. And I think that's what we're going to see this game play out as a bit.
All right. Well, we have the heavy reduction on the Leyline Binding that's going to take out the Thalia and allow for Jordan to really get the engine running. Plays the Vorak.
Is looking for any land here, does find Aspar's headquarters. Thanks to the power of Swamp plus Jetmir's Garden, that was a 2-mana leyline binding with the extra mana being paid for Thalia. And now, with the Vorak and the tap line coming down, Jordan just passing the turn back to Peter. Peter, I think at this spot, really needed a 4th land considering so many of the combo pieces in this deck cost 4.
Yeah, and you're seeing the rare side of Berkowitz's deck where it can actually play that kind of mid-range aggressive game plan should the opponent falter. And with Peter missing land drops, we're seeing Berkowitz here leverage the body on the Vorak and the body from the Courier's Briefcase, and maybe even has like Fable the Mirror Breaker or something to follow up next turn. And that could threaten lethal over the course of just a few attacks.
It is amusing that we are seeing this match between two more greedy decks, almost combo-s decks, coming down to beatdown plans on both sides.
There's a Destroy Evil. That takes out the Leyline Binding, and we got a surprise blocker in Thalia. If Jordan doesn't have an answer here, the Thalia is going to get to eat the token for free, and that's going to be pretty good news for Peter.
Yeah, and Jordan has a copy of Disdainful Stroke in hand, trying to leave that up for a potential dragon coming down from Peter. But now with the Thalia on the battlefield, if Peter had found the 4th land and deployed a dragon, Jordan would have to use that Courier's Briefcase for mana if he wanted to counter. Unfortunately for Peter, still no 4th land means that we are just going to see a pass back of the turn.
All right, that was a big sigh from Peter as they missed their 4th land drop, and we'll see if Berkowitz has anything end of turn to capitalize. That is a 1-mana Leyline Binding with the 1 paid for the Thalia attacks, and now we're going to rumble in with 6 power with the Vorax. This is a tough spot for Peter.
Yeah, and I believe, I haven't looked exactly, but especially now with that Battlefield Forge, Jordan should be able to just cast an Atraxa.
Wow.
And stuck on 3 mana, Atraxa hitting the board. I don't want to call it too quickly, but I don't think Peter Golightly, they are going to be able to put together a combo to come out of this situation, unfortunately.
All right, well, Berkowitz, this is actually the first time I've seen Atraxa resolved in paper. So Jordan's actually separating by card types and then is going to make decisions after that. This is pretty sweet. But I mean, Atraxa is going to draw essentially 4 cards here, 3 of which are spells. And I don't know that Peter can come back. Really needed Disdainful Stroke. Likely has something like Negate in hand, which just looks awkward in the face of this giant angel.
Yeah, and especially with the knowledge that we have, that Jordan Berkowitz has a copy of Disdainful Stroke in hand alongside that Duress that was just freshly picked up. If Peter doesn't do something this turn while Jordan is tapped out, they are not really going to do anything for the rest of the game. That is the hand being the show. That is the handshake being extended, and that is Jordan Berkowitz taking down a very tight one, at least for game 2, and winning the match 2-1, moving up to an unblemished 4-0 record time.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the Domain deck looks great. You know, it plays very fluidly. It works very similarly to the Pioneer version that plays Bring to Light, but instead of Bring to Light, you just have to play other good top-end spells. But you know, a lot of the mana base is the same with the Tri-lands and Fable the Mirror Breaker, Leyline Binding. All these cards are just extremely powerful in Pioneer. I can only imagine how good they are in Standard when you find the right build that enables all of these to work together.
Yeah, unfortunately for Peter Golightly, their deck does look very sweet, but still 3-1. Definitely not a bad start to the tournament. Plenty of time to pick up those wins, make it to day 2 with a solid record, and hopefully put up a shot at the Pro Tour. Todd, that is it for us here from round 4. We'll be back later on in the day to close things out, but we're going to cut to a short break, and on the other side, we're going to leave you in the capable hands of Corey Baumeister and Daquan Watson. Don't go anywhere.